In February 1956, a winter of unfathomable intensity descended upon Britain, one that etched itself into the memories of those who endured it. Along the southeast coast, the sea underwent a remarkable transformation, freezing solid with ice strong enough for people to tread upon, extending almost a mile from the shore. Jump ahead to December 1962, another winter of grim challenges. Snow that fell on Boxing Day that year lingered stubbornly until March, unyielding in its presence. Fast forward to 1978, and London faced its own trials. Garbage began to accumulate in staggering heaps around Leicester Square, paralleled by the harrowing sight of unburied dead. Each decade seemed to hand Britain its own daunting winter ordeal, testing the nation's resilience in unforeseeable ways. The 1950s ushered in a time of gradual recovery for Britain, still laboring under the shadow of World War II. Rationing keys and coupons were still part of life as the nation endeavored to rebuild. Amid this backdrop of hope mingled with fatigue, no one was braced for the challenges February 1956 would impose. That winter announced its presence with subtlety. A dusting of snow arrived in January, hardly noteworthy. Then February arrived, abruptly altering the scene as an immense Scandinavian high-pressure system took hold. It commanded bitterly cold Siberian air to sweep across the country with ferocity. With shocking speed, the freeze entrenched itself. By mid-February, temperatures had dramatically nosedived across the entire nation. The mercury plunged to -20 in Scotland, with northern England trailing closely behind. Even the typically milder southern regions were not spared from the Arctic onslaught. Yet, it was the frozen sea that rendered this winter legendary, a sight to behold along the coast at Herne Bay and Whitstable, throughout Kent. Not merely a fragile fringe of ice at the shore's edge, but a formidable expanse of thick, solid ice, stretching nearly a mile from the land, beckoning brave souls to walk upon waves held in icy stases. In the Scottish Highlands, the harsh conditions turned villages into isolated pockets of endurance. Snow barricaded roads, supply lines vanished, and the relentless cold remained. To counteract this, the RAF commenced Operation Snowdrop, deploying aircraft to drop essential supplies, sacks of flour, tins of sustenance, to farmers marooned by weeks of snow and isolation, left with no other means of sustenance. Meanwhile, city life was disrupted in unexpected ways. Victorian-era water mains, aged iron conduits that had withstood the passage of time, succumbed to the unforgiving freeze, breaking one by one, thousands in total. Water ceased its flow from household taps. Londoners formed long queues at street standpipes, awaiting their turn to fill buckets and jugs, recalling the wartime spirit of endurance. Deliveries, too, fell victim to the encroaching cold. Diesel, thickening, and gelling into waxy constellations inside lorry tanks, immobilized vehicles. Coal lay inert at depots, while households struggled to maintain warmth. Shops anticipated stock that stubbornly refused to arrive, all while the brutal cold persisted unfazed. The extreme conditions of February 1956 cemented it as the coldest February of the 20th century in Britain. This wasn't just a brief cold snap, a day or a week. It was an entire month where temperatures remained below freezing across expansive regions. The central England temperature for February recorded an average of -0.2 degrees. At first sight, this statistic seems moderate, but when contextualized as the ceaseless average across day and night, every day for all 28 days, its severity resonates deeply. People donned all layers they possessed, slept bundled in coats, scrapped ice from the insides of windows each dawn. Yet when the reprieve of March and springtime finally broke winter's hold, a collective exhale of relief swept across the nation. Britain had weathered the storm. But as the 1960s unfurled, an even more relentless winter loomed, one where the big freeze would grip the country for 3 unwavering months. It began on Boxing Day 1962, with snow draping England, relentless in its fall. 4 days on end, and extending into weeks, the relentless barrage of snowfall continued without pause. As New Year's Day approached, the entire nation found itself blanketed in a thick layer of snow, with plummeting temperatures that stubbornly remained between -10 and -15 degrees Celsius, both day and night. In Dartmoor, the snowdrifts rose to an astonishing height of 20 feet, swallowing telegraph poles and transforming houses into something reminiscent of igloos, with only the tops of chimneys visible above the snow. Residents were forced to dig tunnels from their front doors through solid masses of compacted snow. Many villages experienced a profound isolation, enduring 2 months without any vehicular traffic, deliveries, or postal services, engulfed entirely in their solitude and the bitter cold. The River Thames, though not completely frozen over, solidified in enough areas to warrant attention and make headlines. At Oxford, the ice was thick enough to support the weight of a Morris Minor car, as someone dared to drive across its frozen surface. In places where the rivers should have been flowing freely, they now lay silent and unmoving. In the hilly regions, farmers faced overwhelming adversity as they grappled with a looming disaster. Sheep and cattle found themselves stranded in vast fields buried beneath heavy snowdrifts. In a desperate attempt to reach the desperate animals, helicopters were deployed, airlifting hay bales and dropping them down to the creatures, stranded without any other means of support. Despite these efforts, the toll was steep and heartbreaking, with thousands of animals succumbing to the harsh conditions. The catastrophic losses in agriculture were undeniably ruinous, with entire flocks of livestock perishing. The world of sports felt the freeze as well, with football coming to a jarring halt. The playing fields became frozen expanses, resembling icy plains, causing matches to be cancelled relentlessly, week after week, as teams waited for the thaw that felt like it might never come. The football pools relied heavily on match results to function, so when severe weather led to game cancellations, the pools panel was created to fill the gap. This panel, made up of knowledgeable experts, was tasked with predicting the outcomes of the unplayed matches, a solution that sounds incredulous today yet was of utmost importance at the time. The severity of the situation was compounded by the intense cold, with the average temperature from December to February plummeting to a chilling -0.3 degrees. This was even colder than the notoriously harsh winters of 1947 and 1956, marking it as Britain's most frigid winter in over 200 years. In Braemar, Scotland, temperatures plunged to an extreme -22.2 degrees in January, shattering previous records in succession. As March approached, a gradual thaw began, but the process was painstakingly slow. Snow that had accumulated over 3 relentless months lingered for weeks before melting away. This thaw brought about its own set of challenges, including widespread flooding and burst pipes, adding to the mounting issues people faced. Despite these adversities, there was a palpable sense of relief as warmth returned, grass re-emerged, and people awoke to frost-free bedroom windows. Fast forward to the 1970s, a decade plagued by strikes, power shortages, and economic strife. The winter of 1978-79, known as the Winter of Discontent, was a dual onslaught of hostile weather and societal upheaval. It commenced dramatically with a severe blizzard on December 30th, 1978, as heavy snow blanketed the nation, propelled by fierce winds reaching 100 miles per hour. Snowdrifts quickly accumulated, obscuring roads, stranding vehicles, and leaving people isolated. However, this initial onslaught was only the tip of the iceberg. Britain's labour unions were embroiled in a fierce conflict with the government, and strikes had been simmering for months among lorry drivers, rail workers, and public sector employees. The onset of winter exacerbated these strikes, leading to further chaos. Bin collectors abandoned their duties, and as a result, rubbish lay uncollected on the streets, forming mountainous piles of black bags in places like Leicester Square, Liverpool, and towns nationwide. The stench was unbearable, vermin proliferated, and the relentless snowfall merely masked, then unveiled, the deteriorating situation in a dirty, grey hue. Britain's urban centres morphed into makeshift dumping grounds, with no end in sight. The crisis deepened when gravediggers joined the striking workforce, leaving deceased individuals unburied. In Liverpool, coffins amassed in factory warehouses, leaving families in mourning as they awaited the opportunity to bid farewell to their loved ones. This heart-wrenching scenario dominated global headlines, painting a stark picture of despair. Meanwhile, on the roads, conditions were treacherous. Dense, freezing fog blanketed the landscape, while black ice slicked motorways, resulting in daily accidents. Stranded motorists faced protracted waits for assistance, hindered further by the ongoing strikes and adverse weather. The south and west bore the brunt of the devastation, contending with not only ice and fog but also the compounded impact of societal breakdown. During this turbulent period, Prime Minister James Callaghan returned from a sun-drenched summit in Guadalupe to face the mounting crisis. When pressed by journalists, his seemingly dismissive response was immortalized by the Sun newspaper with the headline, "Crisis, what crisis?" A slogan that epitomized a government perceived as out of touch with the public struggles. Though this winter lacked the raw coldness of 1963, it etched itself into history as the most ruinous due to the perfect storm of unfriendly weather and systemic dysfunction. Britain was left feeling shattered, and by the time the more forgiving weather of spring arrived, the government had crumbled under the weight of it all. The 1980s ushered in a winter that etched itself into the annals of history, not for being the longest season or harbouring the heaviest snowfall, but for delivering the coldest conditions ever documented in the United Kingdom. The winter of 1981 to 1982 sent shockwaves across the nation, as Britain experienced a deep freeze unlike any before or since. As December 1981 unfolded, the chill intensified. With Arctic air making its descent just before the festive season, the country was enveloped in an icy embrace. As workers made their way home on December 11th, they were caught off guard by the ferocious snowstorm that ensued, blanketing roads with thick layers of snow in a matter of hours. Many commuters found themselves immobilized, some abandoning their vehicles and opting to trudge homeward through the wintry conditions. Scores of individuals found refuge for the night in motorway service stations, unable to continue their journeys until daybreak revealed a landscape transformed by frost. As days progressed, the bitter cold refused to relent. While Scotland bore the brunt of this Siberian-like winter, England too could not escape its icy grip. By early January, every corner of the British Isles was in the clutches of relentlessly plummeting temperatures. January 10, 1982, marked an unprecedented point in British meteorological records. Amidst the majestic but unforgiving Scottish Highlands, in the small town of Braemar, thermometers plunged to a staggering -27.2 degrees Celsius. This frigid reading equaled a previous record established in 1895, a testament to its rarity and extremity. Yet the truly extraordinary aspect was not just the morning reading but how the cold retained its fierce hold throughout the day in Braemar, reaching only a high of -19.1 degrees Celsius, a relentless testament to the day's severity. Not to be outdone, England also set a chilling benchmark, with Newport in Shropshire experiencing its coldest moment ever, as temperatures descended to a bone-chilling -26.1 degrees Celsius. This set a record for the nation, a day that remains one of the coldest in British history. In the long history of recorded weather, spanning 3 centuries, Britain had never experienced anything colder. On that unforgettable day of January 13th, even Wiltshire, tucked in the south, couldn't escape the relentless freeze as temperatures stayed below a frigid -10 degrees Celsius throughout the day. The air wasn't just cold, it was piercing, described by people as something that inflicted pain, with each breath feeling like a sharp stab to the lungs. Mere moments in this icy grip left skin numbed, rendering gloves and scarves almost futile against the biting chill. This wasn't simply cold, it became a perilous threat. The mighty River Severn succumbed to the freeze, transforming into a striking tableau as massive chunks of ice formed and journeyed downstream, colliding and assembling into floating islands. People daringly ventured across the river, standing on these frozen behemoths right in the heart of England, in regions that hadn't seen ice for generations. Yet amidst the beauty of the frost, tragedy unfolded off the Cornish coast. The Penleigh lifeboat crew embarked on a perilous rescue mission, launching into the savage hurricane-force seas during the dead of winter. Their noble attempt to reach a struggling cargo ship met with disaster as the lifeboat tragically capsized, claiming the lives of all 8 brave crew members. The severity of the winter's grip didn't spare even the Queen. As she travelled through the snow-laden Cotswolds, her vehicle became ensnared in the snow's embrace, forced to seek refuge in a local pub. There, she shared unexpected moments of warmth and resilience with locals who found themselves, quite remarkably, in the presence of royalty, each raising a glass as equals amidst the weather's wrath. This merciless winter of 1981 to 1982, though brief when measured against the relentless chill of 1963, left an indelible mark with its fierce, record-shattering cold. It was a time when Britain felt more like a frozen wasteland, and those who braved its wrath carried the memories with them. The following decade, the 1990s, introduced mostly mild winters, where snowfall turned into a rarity and cold snaps were fleeting, merely whispers of what once was. But December 1990 broke that pattern with an epic storm that blanketed the Midlands with swift and unforgiving snow, reminding everyone of the formidable force of a British winter. Snow fell in a sudden, astonishing deluge, dumping between 30 and 60 centimetres, up to 2 feet, in some areas. In Derby, a remarkable 60 centimetres settled, marking one of the deepest low-altitude snowfalls in Britain's history. This snow was light, fluffy, and treacherously deceptive for transportation. Electric trains were rendered useless as their wheels futilely spun on the dense powder, the overhead lines ensconced in ice. The entire rail network came to a paralysing halt. For British Rail, there seemed to be no solution. The snow was dubbed the wrong type, a statement that quickly became a national jest, albeit one devoid of humour for stranded passengers. Major motorways, the M5 and M6, were transformed into vast, static queues of vehicles caught in winter's trap, with countless drivers marooned for hours, many through the long, cold night. As homes across the country lost power, the NEC in Birmingham became a haven, opening its exhibition halls as impromptu shelters. Families, grateful for a touch of warmth and a sturdy roof, found solace sleeping on the hard floors. In the week leading to Christmas, 650,000 homes plunged into darkness, the familiar flicker of candlelight and the chill of unheated rooms underscoring a poignant holiday. For some, rolling out camping stoves became the only recourse to prepare Christmas meals, and presents were unwrapped under the gentle, flickering glow of candles. Relief came as swiftly as the snowstorm itself. The thaw began within days, roads reopened, power enjoyed a resurgence, and normalcy returned. However, the lesson of the 1990 winter was stark and enduring. Britain's complacency crumbled, confronting the uncomfortable truth that mild winters were not a certainty. This wake-up call paved the way to a colossal reminder during the winter of 2009 to 2010. The severe freeze of 2010 with its 3 long, chilling months showed a new generation the true, raw power of a British winter, reaffirming the harshness that same season survivors knew too well. Satellite images revealed a breathtaking yet daunting sight. The entire United Kingdom cloaked in a thick blanket of snow. From the northernmost reaches of the Shetlands to the southern tip of Cornwall, every corner gleamed white for weeks on end. The persistent snowfall led to a nationwide shutdown. Schools were closed, airports halted operations, and transportation systems struggled under the weight of the weather. The country faced an unexpected crisis as it quickly ran out of grit, the essential mix used to de-ice roads. Salt shortages turned critical as local councils were forced to ration their dwindling supplies. In some areas, the supplies were completely depleted, leaving roads perilously icy and untreated, and making travel hazardous and nearly impossible. In a desperate, almost surreal turn of events, stories emerged of grit-snatching, where councils, driven by necessity, sent their trucks to neighbouring regions to clandestinely procure, or rather steal, much-needed supplies. This somewhat farcical situation underscored the stark reality of Britain's unpreparedness for such severe winter conditions. Further chaos ensued when the Eurostar train broke down inside the Channel Tunnel, an unprecedented event that trapped 2,000 passengers in their carriages overnight. They endured hours in cold, dark solitude, without heating, and with scant information about their situation. Engineers faced immense challenges as they tirelessly worked through the night to free these stranded passengers from their frigid confinement. In the town of High Wycombe, more chaos reignited as worsening snow conditions blocked roads, leaving shoppers stranded. In an extraordinary act of goodwill, the staff at John Lewis transformed adversity into comfort by opening their store to provide refuge. They allowed people to stay overnight by setting up makeshift beds amidst the furniture displays, offering warmth and solace with tea and biscuits from a cafe, creating a temporary safe haven amid the snowstorm. Throughout the country, temperatures plummeted to astonishing lows. In Altnahara, Scotland, thermometers recorded a bone-chilling -22.3 degrees Celsius, while parts of England experienced brutal lows of -18 degrees Celsius, cementing an unforgettable winter in Britain's history. The winter of 2018 was a season that Britain had not seen in over 3 decades. Going back to the harsh winter of 1978 to 79, the island hadn't encountered such prolonged frigid conditions. However, this season was marked by more than just the cold. It featured an extraordinary amount of snowfall that blanketed everything. By the time February rolled in, the relentless cycle of shoveling snow, dealing with frozen pipes, and navigating icy patches had left everyone feeling drained and weary. The long winter seemed unending, but when March at last brought gentler weather, it was as if the entire country took a collective sigh of relief as temperatures across Britain finally began to rise. However, little did they know that one more wild twist was coming in March 2018. Just when the country was anticipating the onset of spring, Britain was hit by an unprecedented meteorological event known as the Beast from the East. This was a fierce clash of 2 powerful weather systems. A wave of icy Siberian air swept in from the east, colliding forcefully with Storm Emma, which was barreling in from the Atlantic. The convergence of these forces over the UK gave birth to ferocious blizzards and unexpected phenomena like thundersnow, unleashing chaotic weather conditions that nobody had prepared for. Instead of daffodils heralding the start of spring, Britain was enveloped in thick layers of snow from north to south. The Met Office had no choice but to issue the highest-level red weather warnings, advising people to stay indoors for their safety. But it wasn't just everyday life that felt the brunt of this unexpected storm. The National Health Service, already under severe strain from the flu outbreak, had to grapple with an operational crisis. With roads treacherous and gridlocked, Ambulances found it near impossible to reach those in desperate need. Planned surgeries were postponed indefinitely, and hospitals had no option but to declare emergency situations. On top of all this, the national grid faced a critical predicament. With the unprecedented spike in demand for heating, the gas reserves were alarmingly low. As a result, public appeals were made for energy conservation, urging households to lower their thermostats to ensure the national grid could cope. In rural areas, the community spirit was on full display as farmers brought out their tractors and four-wheel drives to help clear paths that local councils couldn't reach. Neighbors pitched in to aid one another, proving that in desperate times, communities could unite to overcome the bitter challenges laid before them. On March 1st, Tredegar in Wales hit a staggering maximum of -4.7 degrees, marking it as the coldest March day in the history of record-keeping. It felt as though spring had been outright cancelled, as winter roared back with a vengeance. Although the beast from the east was fierce, it was relatively short-lived. Within a week, temperatures rose markedly, snow began to thaw, and life slowly returned to its typical rhythm. Yet, the harshness of the episode left an indelible imprint on the nation's psyche, challenging long-standing beliefs about winters in the age of climate change, which was supposed to be milder and rainier. The 2020s, however, unfurled an entirely new set of trials with their winters. By December 2022, the country faced not just a bout of biting cold but also grappled with an energy crisis of severe proportions. Named the Troll from Trondheim, a frigid Norwegian air mass pushed the mercury down dramatically. On one particularly frigid night, the temperature in Braemar plummeted to -15.7 degrees, freezing more than just the landscape. It stirred memories of the harsh December nights of 2010. Airports ceased operations as runways became slick with ice, road conditions turned perilous, and a travel nightmare unfolded across the country. This time, the issues extended beyond just the chill. They struck hard at the nation's wallets. Energy prices had soared to unbearable heights, forcing families to make stark decisions. Should they spend what little money they had on heating or food? This grim dilemma led to the opening of warm banks, safe havens such as libraries, community centers, and churches where individuals could shelter from the cold without the financial burden of heating their homes. It was reminiscent of a bygone era, yet starkly unfolding in the winter of 2022. Families spent their days in these public warm spots, while retirees found refuge in these shared spaces, painting a picture of austerity that seemed more fitting of mid-20th century Britain. To alleviate the strain on the national electricity grid, households were even incentivized to minimize their electricity use during peak periods. While the cold of that winter didn't shatter historic temperature records, the impact on the lives of ordinary people was profound, underscoring how economic and social vulnerabilities intertwine with natural adversities in the modern age. In today's segment, let's dive deeper into the challenges faced by individuals enduring tough times in modern Britain. The bitter chill of winter, combined with the skyrocketing costs of energy, presented formidable obstacles that many struggled to surmount. This unique convergence of harsh weather conditions and financial strain has left an indelible mark, creating hardships that previous generations may not have encountered to such a devastating degree. Imagine the relentless grip of cold permeating through every corner of your home, as the cost of heating becomes prohibitively expensive. Families bundled in layers, clutching hot mugs of tea in a valiant effort to fend off the pervasive chill. The winds howled outside, a constant reminder of the severity of the season, while inside, worries about hefty energy bills added an extra layer of anxiety. We invite you to engage with this narrative. If you have memories from any of these particularly grueling winters, we encourage you to share them with us. Were there moments when you found yourself trapped in a snowstorm, unable to reach the warmth of your home? Did the biting cold push you to seek refuge